There have been a lot of bad people in JoJo. Murderers, pedophiles, corrupt politicians, animal abusers, and the list goes on. Most of the time, our heroes deal justice to their enemies in one way or another, whether it be making them eat their own shit and just hope that they don't do bad things anymore, or by turning them into a rock. But today, we are going to be talking about the fate dealt out to the mob boss of Passione, Diavolo. So if you have not finished part 5, I suggest you do that before watching any more of this video, as it contained major spoilers for the ending of part 5. So Diavolo, he's a pretty bad guy, right? I mean, he is among the top rank of villains in the series, sharing the title of main villain with only 5 other characters, soon to be 6. And so far, every villain in JoJo has been defeated in one way or another, some suffering more than others, but when it comes to Diavolo, for whatever reason, it ended up being this guy that suffered the worst fate of all, trapped in an infinite loop of death thrown upon him by Giorno's Gold Experience Requiem. So for all eternity, Diavolo will experience death after death, one after another, without any foreseeable end. So out of all the villains in JoJo, was it really Diavolo that deserved the most tragic fate? Let's take a look into Diavolo's character and all of the terrible things he has done to see if this fate was well deserved. So the first things we find out about Diavolo is that, of course, he is the boss of one of the most powerful gangs in all of Italy, Passione. And we know that Passione isn't exactly the most morally correct gang, just by looking at some of its members, and also the fact that when the gang was first formed, they pretended to fight the drug trade, but it was actually just a front, as they were actually setting up their own operations and would continue to fuel the drug trade in Italy as long as Diavolo was boss, which results in more death and more violence and more blood on Diavolo's hands. But looking at the things Diavolo has done himself directly, it starts off in his flashback where we see his mother, who Diavolo had been keeping alive with her eyes and mouth sewn shut, and after she was found out, it just so happened that Diavolo's entire hometown burned to the ground that same night. So Diavolo, only at the age of 19, has already tortured his own mother and murdered most of his village in a fire that is assumed he started. And then one thing leads to another, and he becomes the mob boss of Passione with one of the most powerful stands in the series, disguising his gain as a symbol of peace and justice. So it's clear that Diavolo is a really bad person, but I mean, that's expected because he is a main villain and the boss of one of the most brutal and powerful gangs in all of Italy. But one thing that separates Diavolo from all of the other villains in the series is that he is severely mentally damaged, to the point where he has developed a split personality disorder so severe that his actual physical body will change along with his personality from Diavolo to Doppio. It's so clear that he is so mentally unstable and he is so detached from reality that he truly believes he is an immortal and will live forever because fate is on his side. So unlike other villains like Kira or Dio, who are just genuinely evil and enjoy killing people and are fully aware of what they're doing, Diavolo is still responsible for a lot of death and violence in his country, but he himself seems to only kill when people interfere with him or stand in his way. But when this does happen, Diavolo is extremely merciless and extremely brutal in all of his fights because of the capabilities of his stand. Like in his first encounter with Polnareff, after Polnareff was investigating Diavolo and Passione, they ended up coming face to face with each other, and Polnareff luckily survived the encounter with a gouged out eyeball, a ripped off arm, and 2 broken legs after being thrown off a cliff by Diavolo. And on top of all of this, he is a mentally damaged person who may not even be fully aware of the gravity of his actions. As half of him, Doppio, seems to be an innocent adolescent with extreme loyalty to his gain and his boss, Diavolo. Although Doppio does seem to have violent tendencies and the will to fight, this seems to come from his loyalty to his gain. So when looking at the fate other evil characters like Kira and Dio suffered, I bet Diavolo wished he could take an ambulance to the head and living on as a ghost over being stuck in an infinite loop of death any day. So was it Diavolo that deserved the worst suffering out of all of the villains? Definitely not. Although he is a bad person, he's not as bad as some others. And there are even some parts to Diavolo that seem innocent and good. But there will be a card in the top right where you guys can vote on whether or not you think Diavolo deserved the fate he was given. Anyways, that was Did Diavolo Deserve It? Like the video if I fought your boredom or if you just enjoyed, and subscribe for, of course, more videos. Thank you guys for watching, and I hope you enjoyed.
dance at the